it's red, it would,
Okay,
okay, so that blue button, go live, there you go.
okay, we'll go. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Bye.
I think we're good, Sharon.
Okay. We'd like to welcome you to our Planning Commission meeting this evening. This is Planning Commission meeting for August 17th, 21. And apologize for a little bit of a late start with technology. This meeting is being recorded. I also like to welcome our City Attorney Brian Haas with us and our Councilwoman Carolyn Lundberg. Thank you for being here also. We're going to begin with an opening prayer by Commissioner Thompson and then a pledge of allegiance by Commissioner Johnson.
Dear Heavenly Father, as we come before thee this evening, we're so grateful for the opportunity we have to join together to serve as a planning commission, and we're grateful for the members of our community and city faculty and staff. And we're grateful for this opportunity to meet together to discuss the issues related to the city. We ask that thy spirit may be with us, that we may be open to input, that we may be able to make the best choices to benefit the citizens as well as the city of Lindon. We're so grateful for the opportunity we have to live in such a beautiful city and such a beautiful state. We ask a special blessing now on our military servicemen that are in harm's way overseas, and we ask that the situations will calm and we'll be able to bring people home safely. And we're grateful for all of our many blessings, and say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please rise. Repeat the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
My thing timed out. Okay, just a second, my screen timed out. Okay, we're going to begin our meeting with an audible roll call of the commissioners. Sharon Call, here. Mike Marchbanks.
Here.
Jared Showers. And I believe
Here.
he's on Zoom. Okay. Rob Callis.
Present here.
Okay. Stephen Johnson.
Here.
Scott Thompson.
Here.
And Renee Tribe is excused. Okay. Planning commissioners have received the minutes ahead of time. Had a chance to review those. Do we have any changes or corrections to the minutes?
It was good.
I thought they looked, I didn't see anything. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. The next item on our agenda is a time for public comment. This would be for any items that are not already on the agenda for this evening. Is there anyone here for that purpose? Okay. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing, and so I do need a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second it.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, this is a public hearing. This is for a zoning map amendment for the planned residential development overlay at approximately 550 North State Street. And I'm going to let our planning staff explain why we're looking at that again this evening.
Thanks, Commissioner Call. Let me get settled real quick.
Yeah, our applicant is Elwood Holdings.
Sorry, my report is. Okay. All right, thank you, Commissioners. Thanks for your patience this evening. With Anders leaving, I'm a one-man show, so I appreciate your patience. So you're all familiar with this item. You reviewed it earlier this year. The City Council ultimately denied this zone change on June 7th of this year. The applicant has reapplied under section 17.04.090 that allows the Planning Commission and the City Council to consider a new application for development within 6 months of being denied when a substantial change of conditions has been made since the submittal of earlier application and a new land use application has been submitted. So if we go back real quick, just the previous history, this is the first application or one of the first applications that the Planning Commission saw. You saw a first one that had the road.
Mike, should we invite Amy to come up to the front?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm letting him finish first, then I was
Okay.
gonna come up after.
Okay, that's great. Okay, go ahead.
So you saw a few plans. The one you saw had 570 terminating, and then you saw this plan with 570 open. You ultimately gave a recommendation on this option 2 here that had 76 homes and then 76 total units, 72 townhomes, and 4 single-family lots. That you made a recommendation on that one, and then the one that went to the council, man, I'm losing. Let's see. The one that the council saw was this one that they ultimately denied, that was 71 units. It was 58 townhomes and 13 single-family homes. And so this one it was even different than the one you gave a recommendation on. And so the applicant has now applied, so this was denied. The applicant's applied for this newest plan that is 65 total units, a total of 46 townhomes and 19 single-family homes. We feel that this meets the definition of being significantly different, especially from the one that the Planning Commission originally reviewed that was 76 units. So there's been a decrease in density from 9.2 units to the acre. That's what the council ultimately denied. They're now proposing 8.47 units to the acre. So again, the plan shows, from what the council last saw, it was 58 townhomes, it's now down to 46, and then it had 13 single-family homes, that's now been increased to 19 single-family homes. So just a couple of specifics on this, the roads are all public. There are, each of the single-family homes and the townhomes have 2-car garages and 2-car driveways. There's a total of 25 off-street parking stalls. I know that was a big deal for both the Planning Commission and the City Council at the last meeting. As part of this, the approval, the Planning Commission and Council are supposed to review concept elevations and design for the commercial and the residential. So the commercial is 3.18 acres is what's being proposed. The residential is 6.75 acres. Here's the renderings. These haven't changed from the last time you saw these. So these are the different commercial buildings that are being proposed. The residential. So these are the different elevations for the single family. Looks like these at least are all 3-car garage homes. These are 2-car garage, so it looks like there would be a mix. And then again, additional elevations, and then elevations for the townhomes. Now, the townhomes, at least, we have not done a design review on those. These are just concepts, so they will look slightly different when they come back to you to make sure they meet the ordinance requirements of the planned residential development zone. So with that, we've heard quite a bit on this in the past. I'd be glad to answer any questions along with the applicant with the proposed concept site plan.
Just a question. If an applicant brings in a plan before the
Might
plan-
have to, sorry, for Jared to hear, you probably have to talk close into your
If
microphone.
an applicant brings in a plan and presents it in the planning commission and we recommend approval to the city council, how is it that then that plan can change so much when it's presented to the city council?
Yeah, so you're the recommending body on that, and so the council has, they're the final land use authority, so they have the right to then work with the applicant on that.
To change it?
Mhm.
But shouldn't the plan that they present to the city council be the one we approved? And then they can change it?
It was,
That's the way it happened?
yes,
Okay.
yes. So they went through probably 4 meetings with the city council.
Okay.
So that, yes, so the one that you recommended was seen by the council,
Okay.
then it was,
And then they can change it,
then they
of
changed it,
course.
yes.
Yeah, understand.
On the homes, the single-family homes, just out of interest, what size as far as square footage are you planning? I mean, I know that does not enter into this. I'm just out of my own interest and maybe
Yeah.
some of the public.
Right, so, we are planning on, obviously we have to meet the setbacks that are there
Right.
with it, and depends if it's, some of those products might be a single level. The great part about Alpine Homes is they have a lot of product to choose from and what they have built in the past. So as an individual comes and selects their lot, if they want a master on the main, or they want a rambler versus a 2-story, they have those options to choose. These houses will have basements, so if we count those, a majority of those will probably be around 3,000 square feet for sure, I would say. 3,500, it just depends, it depends if we're talking rambler, 2-story, are you counting your square footage of a basement, or, yeah.
So these will not be spec homes, these are gonna be custom, under contract homes.
Under contract homes, yes. I wouldn't classify them as custom, though.
Okay.
And I understand the lot size varies anywhere from about 5,000 square foot to 9,000 square foot.
Right,
Just from what I
so-
understand.
Yeah, exactly. So something that was of interest for the city council and the public in general is, some housing options for HOA that had for a senior community. So I would classify, maybe the smaller ones could be what's called a patio home. That's a rambler, a smaller home, smaller footprint where the individual doesn't have to have a very large yard to maintain, that the HOA is maintaining that for them to handle that need that's there. Utah as an overall is short. We are short 10,000 homes in Utah, and there's just a dire need of housing in general, let alone attainable. I would call attainable housing versus, I wouldn't call this affordable housing, but I would call it attainable housing. So, we strongly, you guys recommended a lot higher density. The city council, even though the city council had unanimously approved the overlay at 10 units per acre, they still felt this particular piece needed a lower density of 8.5, and that's why we've gone through the labors of providing multiple plans, and ultimately I really feel like this is a compromise for sure between us and the city. I think the city's done a good job in working and fighting for the citizens and making sure that this fits for the community. So being just under 8.5 for it, and that we have changed. It's not just the density, it's also the product type. It's not that we did move to more single-family homes and making a larger buffer. Was also a concern of the community, is, abutting the townhomes right next to the, in the transition, not having a transition, and that's why we feel like we've made a large transition. We had the option to, maybe we talked about rearranging a couple different townhomes, and we felt overall where we felt it flowed the best is putting these single-family homes in that median, the median island, I guess you could call it, as far as for a traffic flow and everything else. I know traffic was always a concern in the past public comment. We feel having the townhomes in the majority closest to the State Street, that then the majority of that traffic is going to be going in and out towards State Street versus going through the communities. And we feel like the single-family home is buffering and helping with that. So, yeah, like we said, the designs, the elevations have not fully, Alpine Homes is customizing a design specific for Lindon City's requirements. They just didn't want to send the elevations until we have a zone change approval.
So, Amy, can I just ask a question on the yards or whatever? So these single-family homes, you said there was pad sites, and I would assume those would be more in the middle. Mm-hmm. And are those going to be taken care of by the HOA?
Yes.
As far as, what about the outside? Are they going to be more individual yards, or is it all going to be?
They'll have, those single-family homes have private backyards. So I should say, let me clarify that when I said the yards. The front yards are included in the HOA. The backyards on the single-family homes, because they are allowed to have the fences and everything, and they can keep their dog in their backyard and stuff, they would be in charge of their backyard.
On all of them?
On the single-family homes, the townhomes, we have, it depends how we write the development agreement, but usually we have had a common, we've actually talked about fencing those backyards for the backyards. But the townhomes in the middle here where the green space is, they have a smaller backyard, fenced backyard.
It is fenced?
It is fenced, like that line, you can kind of see the line, that smaller line that kind of goes.
Has the X's in it?
But yeah, so that's their fenced backyard so they can still keep an animal or something, you know, have a barbecue, have some privacy there, but then the HOA is in charge of the other part.
And I'm just trying to remember back, because there's been so many plans, but so let's take the ones that are furthest north. And they have bigger backyards, right? The townhomes there, if I'm reading
Yes,
that
those are
correct.
30-foot backyards.
And we talked about before that those would still be mowed by the HOA?
Yeah, we had talked about that, and we had talked also about it being, that they were being fenced, and we said that we were flexible with either or. City council said that they would like them fenced.
Right, and I think even when we talked about it, we talked about being fenced, but having gates.
Right,
So they would be
having
mowed.
gates so you could mow.
And so, just looking at, I'm wondering, for people who are retired, that middle pad site, if they had the same ability to have those mowed, they still have a yard, but I'm not, that's why I was asking the question, is there a
Yeah.
way to have someone have a single family
Those would be final details
home?
in our final plat, with our development agreement that we would, with the HOA of what we would iron out on exactly. In my experience, when it comes to a single family home, they like to be in charge of their own backyard for it. But a townhome, yeah, they want the HOA to take care of it. So, and the great part here is we have 3 product types. So the ones that are farthest north, those farthest north, those are very large townhomes. It's a lot larger footprint than a very typical, almost think of it, almost the size of a twin home, if you're familiar with a twin home, as far as the square footage of that. And then the middle island townhomes that are closest to the State Street and in the island here, those are a smaller, a typical townhome, 3-bed, 2.5-bath style.
Go ahead.
I recall with city council, there were several sticking points. One was density, which you've tried to do. Another one was that road encroaching in the 300-foot setback. And similar to the one that we sent to them, where you flopped it, got the road inside, you lost a couple homes on this up there. Why was that one considered for this? I mean, because I think this,
So
once
we-
again, that was a real sticking point for several members of the council, having that go out into the road.
Right, and we had talked about that as a possibility. Ultimately, they felt like, okay, if we could get more lower density, more single-family homes, and, you know, the green space, we would be willing to compromise on the road. We also had talked about the fact that there's a commercial piece down below the church. And so whether, you know, we have to have access in and out through the road without somebody going in and out through the neighborhood, for that. As another fact, it's also important to note that there's no loading there's no access as far as that long building. There's gonna be no garage doors or access off of that road into that product. So, I guess that's where we talked about compromises more, so yeah.
Another question, this would be for Mike. Regarding the wall, there's the concrete wall on the, where we say the east side, that was always designed, we always said concrete between residential and commercial. Is that wall still required in this situation, since they're going residential to residential for quite a ways before they get to the townhomes?
Let me look at the ordinance really quick.
That's a good question. I'm afraid the way the ordinance is written, yes, but I don't know if it makes sense. But
Because that's a 7-foot wall all the way across there, when it's residential, abutting residential now. Yeah.
Are you talking on Elwood Place?
On the east side.
On
On the east side,
570.
abutting the properties for Justin Stewart, Kelly Alford, is that now required, since we're going from residential to single family to single family?
I guess my question there too would be what did the residents want? You know, I mean, the ordinance says such and the residents, to me, that should defer to those residents there.
It was just, I just noticed that in the process of reviewing it.
So I think you're looking at the zone as a whole, so this would be an overlay zone for this area. So yeah, I think it's, the 7-foot masonry wall would be required because of the zone.
Okay.
And Mike, is there any option for us to change the material there?
What do you
It
mean?
just says 7-foot masonry or concrete perimeter
Okay.
fence.
Well, just if the residents came together and said, no, what we really want is a nice vinyl fence down there, it doesn't sound like the ordinance gives us that ability to change that.
But it probably indicates some type of solid surface.
Yeah, I mean, it's specific, it says masonry or concrete.
Okay.
Right,
So,
right.
We have it in our budget. We are planning to put a concrete,
Right.
but I see your point. Whether, what the residents, but I'm not in charge of that.
I think we'd follow the ordinance the way it's
Right,
written.
yeah.
That's what, I just asked what the ordinance indicated,
Yeah.
so, all right, thank you.
I just have a question. I know that one of the conditions is the way staff has put this together is that the number of units that can be rented out and occupied by non-owner residents that now is that going to be in the development agreement or is that just how are we
No, it's in the development
specifying
agreement.
that?
The city council's concern, there's a really high demand because of the amount of lack of housing, that there's a really high demand, and I personally have developed many of these, that they're a for rent community. An entire fund buys the entire community, and that's all it is for rentals. Multiple
what we don't want
ones
to
in
have
Draper,
happen.
there's multiple, the reality is when you drive through the ones in Draper, you would have zero idea that it is a for rent community. But, I mean, the reality is I think everybody needs a home when we rent, and I'll get off by, people that rent aren't bad people,
No.
right? Just because they have to rent. Maybe that's their choice. I'll get off my soapbox on that, but we aren't planning on that. Alpine Homes is not a for rent community builder. They are that's not their plan. They're individual, just like they're not a spec home builder, really. They have built spec homes, but that's not their intention on here for that. I've actually worked extensively with their marketing department as far as their listing a launch for communities, and that's, they're more owner-occupied is their target.
So I have a question for staff. So as far as determining that number of units that can actually be owner-occupied or rented out, how do we come up with that percentage or that number or?
That's a number that we've agreed to work through in the site plan development when we see exactly what's there. And there are certain
Okay.
restrictions that laws place on, that the law places on setting caps. And so we're going to do some more discussion and research in that area. And that
Okay.
will be included in the site plan approval and the CCNRs of the HOA.
Okay.
So I guess,
go
can
ahead.
I just follow up with that, though? Can you give us any idea? I mean, the language in the motion is so vague,
Right.
the number could be zero. I mean, the way it's worded, and that's hard for me to make a judgment call.
It wouldn't be zero, because then there wouldn't be any limit.
Right.
But you're right. But it is, but we also include that we recognize that there's some research that needs to be done on what those caps are. We've done some of that. Generally speaking, a 20% cap, 25% cap has been found to be good. That's probably where we're looking. There is also the ability to limit it based on time restrictions. You can't rent it within so many years of purchasing it. So those are what we're looking at, but we have a lot of confidence that we'll find something that fits and is agreeable to both sides.
And when you say 20 to 25%, is that the amount?
Units
Units that could be rented or that
could
can't?
be rented.
That
Could
could
be.
be,
That could
okay.
be.
Right.
So that just gives me an idea. That's very helpful versus we don't know, so,
Right.
thank you.
I
Yeah.
think that 25% is kind of a guideline that HUD
Right.
creates, that they don't, there's secondary market lenders that won't come in and do an individual loan if there's more than
Yeah,
25.
they wouldn't be FHA approved if more than the HOA
So
has
that
a
20,
higher
25%
amount
is-
of
And
that.
those are the numbers that we need to
Yeah.
nail down, those restrictions, and making sure that we're in compliance.
They don't wanna build a product that people aren't gonna be able to get a mortgage on.
Right. The-
Right, and that's why the for rent communities when they structure it, it's the entire community and it's almost even one plat. With individual numbers, they could sell it off, but that's how they structure it from development for it. And this, like I said, this product was never intended for that, will work for that.
One follow-up question that kind of goes along this with, the accessory units, did we specifically exclude this zone also?
We didn't exclude this zone, but it's, any lot less than 6,000 square feet or less.
Right, but there are a number here, so is that something that we could go back? I mean, we're not anywhere near our 25%. I would think, even looking forward, any of these that are built, we probably want to exclude.
We can look at that. The council passed that ordinance last night,
Okay,
but we may be making some amendments to that already in the near future. If the Ivory Homes is going to make a presentation to the council on September 20th and talk about units and some product they have that may fit an accessory apartment. So there possibly could be a future amendment.
I just see one of the issues is parking, and if those single-family homes that are bigger, that are next to those.
Remember, we have two-car garage plus 2 parking spaces in the driveway, plus we are actually over our required amount for parking
Right.
on there. And they're public streets as well, so they're extra wide. So, they're wide, so you could park on the street as well, obviously, except for around snowplow season and things like that. But yeah, we weren't concerned on the ADUs because, goodness, it's coming down.
It's raining.
Thank goodness for those Park City fires, right? Summit County. I lost my train of thought. Oh, because of the 6,000 square foot lot, I guess. we
Right,
were
and there's just
concerned
some
on
that, I just wonder even for future.
Like
that's something-
only for, and I guess there'd be a line, most on the 570 street, many of those units have ADUs, right? But
Right,
it's not like-
and that's maybe one reason why I'm bringing it up. That street already has a parking problem because of them. Even though all those units have 3-car garages and street parking, it's a problem. It just is with, and so I see 1, 2, 3, 4.
are those legal ADUs?
5, 6.
Hopefully.
Most of them are.
Okay.
I think on the street, our street, they are.
Okay.
Or they have family, which then makes them legal, because they're in there. I just see 6 here that would qualify that are over 6,000 square feet, right? 1, 2, 3, 6. And they're all there by the 570 North. So that's why I just maybe we should consider maybe making this zone part of that exclusion
I guess
for
I'm,
accessory units.
yeah. I'm an advocate of allowing individuals if it fits in your ordinance and it fits in your community and they have a space to park and that family needs, and they've made all the legal, necessary
But
steps.
isn't this ordinance been driven by the new state legislation that's basically mandating that we don't
Accessory
deny
apartment.
accessory apartments?
They're over
Yeah, you can
6,000.
limit in 2 situations for lots 6,000 square feet or less, or 25% of your community.
Okay.
And so we can look at that in the future.
I would just suggest that we look at that as part of the,
We've got time to do that.
before these are built, so that they're maybe not built with that intention, if that's what we'd like to do.
Yeah. I think let's maybe let Ivory Homes make their presentation to the council on the 20th and kind of see what the council gives us as feedback from there.
Are there any specific questions for the applicant? And then this is a public hearing, and there are people here I know that are here for this purpose, and so we'd like to hear from them. Are there any other questions for,
One real
The
simple
applicant.
question, Amy. On the in-between units 4 and 5, there's space, but no parking spot there, where all the others do. Is there a reason to not add 2 more parking spots, just to add them?
Besides the part, both sides, the setback has to be 16 feet, and the driveway, there was a reason. Michael, was there a reason on that? I mean, we have
They
that
fit,
as like,
So
what?
they would fit there, but
Yeah.
if you wanted
And
to.
that would just be a suggestion, if we can add 2 more, that's just 2 more that keeps people off the,
Yeah. That's a great, you know what, we did that between 10 and 11, so.
I see it's between 10 and 11, between 16 and 17.
I don't know if there was, I remember in the past, one of our other designs, Michael, on when we had a bend like that, you didn't allow a parking
Close to the-
space
to the
on the bend of the code, and I think that's why it was removed instead, and that's why there's not a line between there.
We can look at, typically that's like on this section here.
Yeah,
But,
the interior corner.
but we can look at
It's
that.
So I'm
not a big
happy
deal,
to-
but
yeah.
it would just add 2 more parking
It's
spots,
great,
which,
it's a great thought, for sure. Happy to comment, happy to do that. Okay, anything else?
let's go ahead and open it up to the public, since this is a public hearing. And if you could stand and state your name, or you can come
Speak
up
in
to
the
the front.
microphone.
Yeah, come up to the
Yeah.
front so we can hear you in the microphone, especially for those that are on Zoom. So are there any of you who would like to make comment this evening? Anyone that has input, or are you just here to learn about it, or?
I just wondered what was the big difference? Why is it on now again, so soon? What's the significant difference?
Will you come up to the microphone, because they
Sure.
can't hear on the Zoom.
Okay.
And if you'd state your name, please.
My name is Tracy Clark, and I live on 628 North Locust.
Mhm.
So my concern is, why is this on now? What's the significant change that it's being now presented again before the 6 months is up?
Okay, I'm gonna let staff or our city attorney explain that.
If we just take a look at that first map, Mike, that was submitted with the application, you see the number of units and the density that is in there. That's the significant change, is the type of units, the density, and that configuration is notable. And as this issue was broached with the city council, we just felt it was just the best way to handle the situation was to acknowledge that significant change and to bring it back to the planning commission and back through the public commenting process. And so any court that would take a look at those 2 maps would find that there has been a significant change in the application.
So are we going from, was it originally like 9.4 down to 8.4? Is that?
Yeah.
It was originally even higher than that,
It was
7 or something,
9.7 something.
yeah.
So the number of units, the density, that's a significant
Units.
The buffer zone with the single-family homes,
I
the
guess
the parking, there's a lot of differences.
my frustration has been, so when we moved to Lindon, it's always been half-acre lots for the homes. I mean, there's been maybe, I don't know, a few exceptions, but
Well, everything above the canal is less than
Right.
half acre. That's all 12,000, or can be down to that.
and it just seems like we're just so condensed that it shouldn't be this way. It shouldn't be allowed. I don't know. I mean, I understand that there's a struggle for, you know, having places for people. But this is why we moved to Lindon, was because of having those half-acre lots. And now it's saying, no, we don't have to do that.
There were, and our staff can explain that, there are just a couple of places that where the commercial went back very, very deep, that we were trying to create some infill areas where this type of housing may be appropriate. So that's and our staff can explain that a little more completely too.
No, I think you explained it perfectly. And then the ordinance just, you know, the planning commission and council both addressed how it transitions better. You know, they wanted a better transition to the existing single-family homes. But that's right. There's a couple deep commercial lots along State Street that's what they were trying to do with this ordinance, is to still require the commercial along State Street and then get a use that transitioned to the bigger lots.
So how does this impact us? I mean, like for myself, as far as like if I ever go to resell my home, to me, something like this, doesn't it drive the value down?
We're hoping not.
Well, there was actually studies done, we went through this process, there was actually studies done that actually indicated it didn't have a negative impact on your home, because of what you have is you have all these people in the condos that when they're ready to move up, they want to stay in the area, they love the area, they want to stay in the area, and so they want to move into a bigger home. And so, the studies that we've done during this entire process over the last year actually indicated otherwise, that it won't decrease the value of your home, it might even increase it, because it makes the area as a whole more attractive.
So it might increase it.
And again, another factor that we looked at in trying to create that buffer is if this was zoned purely commercial, and if we don't allow this type of a use to come in, then you may be looking at a box store or some other use that would devalue your home. If you've got a loading dock across your fence where unfortunately we have a couple places where we receive multiple complaints about the noises of the loading docks at 4 o'clock in the morning. And this creates a buffer that helps us address those issues. And that's another reason that the council and the commission thought that this was an appropriate way to create that buffer. So if you've got another high commercial use in there, it could actually devalue those surrounding properties.
Okay. Anyway, those were my concerns, and especially like even with that opening into 570, it seemed like at one point that wasn't there. I mean, or it was only going to go from State Street into the community. Why is this now explain the difference of why we can't just have one entrance in instead of, opening up at 570 North? Because that was the other thing with us being where we're right on Locust, having that congestion of people coming out of that community. Why couldn't it just be one entrance?
So a couple things. So the city's general plan always showed 570 North connecting to State Street. So that the applicant applied to have 570 closed. That was denied by the Planning Commission and City Council. They felt like the neighborhood should connect to the surrounding area. And then it does need multiple accesses to meet fire code and our subdivision code.
Those, we've kind of hammered that through a lot of meetings, trying to make a decision that may work on that.
To me, it's like it's going to make that, our street is already busy. I can see it just being even more so where I'm coming out of my home. It just makes it harder for me to get out of my driveway, but I'm sure it'll be like that for everybody else. Those were my
Well, we appreciate those
concerns.
comments. We've tried to work through those, in multiple directions to try to come up with the best. Okay, sir?
Yes.
And what is, I know you've been here before, but what is your name?
My name's Gerhard Edward Betcher.
Right.
I lived in Lindon 45
Do you want to
years.
speak
you
in the
move over to the speaker?
microphone? It's just so those that are online can hear.
Well, I'm here about 570 North. That's, when I bought the property 40-some years ago, it was the cul-de-sac drawn in the plan. That's why we bought it. And then when they put the improvements in, they made it straight. I thought, this is trouble. Because I'm a builder, and I know what you can and can't do.
Right.
So all they gotta do is put the wall straight through and stay on their side of the fence, and that 570 side is already developed. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of unhappy people if that street goes through. Because it's a nice community, everybody gets along with everybody.
Right, it
Kids
is.
play on the street with the bikes, and it's gonna change the whole thing when all you gotta do is cut that road that way and you're done. I'll do it with a pencil.
Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but in previous meetings with the commission, but with the city council, they have the final word on that. They have already approved that going through.
I know you can't please everybody, but you can please us a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I gotta say.
I think that
It's-
the
I'm here for the
decision
neighborhood.
of whether 570 goes through or not, that decision has already been made
I mean,
previously.
Just change it.
Yeah, I wish I
Save
could.
a lot of
I
solid
certainly
time.
don't have that ability at this point.
Okay. No, I guess,
Thank you though so much. Okay, is there anyone else that has new information or information that hasn't been expressed before?
My name is Justin Stewart. You've seen me here quite a bit, so I
We
think everybody.
appreciated you being here.
I think you've read all my letters, hopefully you've read all my letters. And so I'm not gonna repeat myself on all those things. But the only thing I would say is back to the ADU issue. One of the significant changes that is bringing this back now is the difference. What was actually voted on was a 71 versus now the 65. So those 6 units, if there's 6 units up there that could have ADUs, would take it right back up to the 71, which is kind of the difference as to why they are bringing it back. So I understand an argument. Full disclosure, I do actually have an ADU, so kind of ironic for me to sit up here. But at the same time, I think if these were half-acre units, you probably wouldn't hear me coming up here and saying, hey, they can't have ADUs. But where we already have a density of 65 units in this small of a space, to add essentially another 6 units, and the traffic and other things that brings, seems to kind of nullify what was negotiated by the city. So that would be a concern to me. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Justin, I just want to correct that. I missed one. It's actually 7. Since you're getting the number from me, I'll correct.
Even worse.
So I'll just correct it. I counted incorrectly, and there are actually 7 that could have ADUs.
So I'm Amy Alvord. I also live on 570 North, right next to this development. Bemoaning the fact that we legally cannot have our cul-de-sac anymore, which I know everyone on our street would really prefer, but since that's not possible, we would much rather have residential coming through our neighborhood and living right next to residential. We would much rather have this than commercial. We have no idea what we could get for commercial, and so this is that's kind of an unknown, and this is known, and so this is the best plan that we've seen so far. We really appreciate, especially since we live right next to it, all of the transition that Amy has put into it, all of the single homes that are in it. We really feel like that's moved away from, our house. We feel like our property value is protected better in this plan than the rest of the plans. We are also concerned about the apartments in the basement as well, the accessory apartments. We have them at our house, but we're also on a half an acre with a very large frontage, and where I think pretty much everything that Justin had said. So we just echo what Justin has said. But as far as like the residential plan, this is the best that we have seen so far. that I know we all have to compromise on something, and I feel like, you know, losing our cul-de-sac was a huge compromise for the people on our street, but for us personally, having this transition and having this development, we really like this. So I don't know if there's anything better than it, I don't know, but as far as what we've seen in the past, we really like this. So,
Thank you very
thanks.
much. Thank you.
It's compromise.
And just a comment on that, I think when, you know, it comes to the site plan and you see all the requirements that are going to be as far as the architectural development, the landscaping, you know, just everything that the city is going to require to make this a really nice development. I think you should also attend those meetings so you can see what the product is going to be. So, anyone else? Okay.
My name is Cole Hooley, and I live on 378 West 700 North. And I just want to make sure I understood what the staff said. So with the verbiage of the ordinance saying a substantial difference in the plan in order to reapply, if I understand it, it's kind of like you know it when you see it, but there's not specific, like a percentage, or it's not like the ordinance says if there's a difference of XYZ percentage of density and this many units have changed characteristic type or product, then but it's like you're relying on precedent or anticipating. Is that right?
There's no specific definition of what substantial change means.
Okay.
But courts have addressed that in a number of contexts.
Sure.
And you're right. It's what a reasonable person when looking at this
Would see it, yeah.
would see it.
Okay, great. And then could you specify who makes the determination? Is it a staff? You had mentioned city council were in on the decision. Is it something they voted on? Is it something staff just looks at in consultation with you? Who's the one who ultimately says, we're gonna let him back in?
It is pretty much a staff decision, but we run it past the council and say, hey, we feel that this is enough of a change that a reasonable, ordinary person would recognize that change.
Okay, and are those conversations just informal conversations, or is that in like one of the meetings and they vote formally on that? Or?
There's no formal vote.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Those are just the questions.
Thank you. Okay, if there's not any other comments with new information, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back up to the commission. Okay. Okay, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, as far as additional discussion from the commissioners before we make a determination.
My big concern with this plan, if there is any, is the road, and more that by definition, I think that road becomes residential. We're gonna put a fence on the, what is that, the west side of that? There's gonna be a masonry fence, so it can't be used commercially. And I'd like, as far as the plan goes, I'm just worried about that we're giving up some of that 300 square footage, right, that 300 footage where we required a trade-off for someone else. I'm more worried about setting a precedent than this plan is that we're allowing residential inside. That's just on the other hand, maybe it's worth it for the other compromises. You know, I struggle a little bit with that. And I guess my magic number was 8 per acre. We're close, but we're not quite there. Those are my struggles with the plan. But on the other hand, I love the extra single-family units. Grateful that density has come down. And the only other crazy thought I had with one of my weird dreams is put a pork chop there and so it's only right in, right out. But that probably make it a one-way road around, but I don't know if that would make like I said, that was probably not one of my most awake moments when I thought about that.
Is that onto 570, the
Well,
right in, right out?
where the road tees there, right? So 570 comes and then when it tees into right and left, if you put a right in, right out, it would then make people go around. It would just disperse the traffic more. It'd make it not just the automatic to go up.
I think we're willing to discuss traffic calming options. I don't know if it's a pork chop or if it, there definitely will be a stop sign there. But we're willing to look at that as we go through the site plan and engineering plans. I think we had made that, Amy and I had talked about that in the past.
So there's still a lot of those things that can be determined with a site plan.
Yeah.
Okay. I think from what I understand, part of the compromise on the 300-foot commercial and having the road in 300-foot was that did give a lot more green space.
Right, and so.
And so the preference was to have the additional green space in the development itself.
And I'm along those lines.
Is that accurate?
Correct, there was a plan that we had created with the road not in that space. And we still fit green space and parking requirements, it wasn't as nice of a development.
The only other thing I want to clarify there, and I'm pretty sure that it's correct, is that road is not being counted at all for density. Is that correct? Since it is a residential road technically, but it's not that square footage of.
You're counting behind that line.
The 300-foot line is set in stone, we are not touching anything.
Okay.
The density is figured by the 300-foot line, even though the road is technically residential, which I'd prefer it to be, because once we open it as commercial, then we can load from the back, which I don't think we want. So, like I said, to me, that's more of worrying about future developments, because we did make that trade, but it's a compromise on this one to get the green space, and I'm not gonna.
I think the reality is you guys voted on an overlay that was really only for this piece and the nursery piece that would ever fit on any other land in Lindon. Lindon, the other nursery piece has already gone through, so this one, so when you're saying a precedence, I don't know any other piece that you're gonna be able to get this overlay on.
There are plenty in the city. So.
There are plenty deep malls that could switch over to this overlay that we can't foresee everything, but there could be some change in the future. Now, while I'm on the subject, I think this particular plan is better. We looked at the last year when we were here in council, we went back and forth, and we finally decided to move what we thought was the best version forward to the city council after we just hashed it out. I think we may be at that situation again. I know I question the road out there, but if city council's willing to acquiesce on that because of the benefits. I too was at the council meeting, the last council meeting, where they had what I thought was a good plan. It was a decent compromise, and I supported that at that time. And this is even better. So it's hard for me to go back and say this is a terrible plan. So I think at this point I would move this forward to council and have council determine if that cut into the 300 feet is that critical to them. It seems like everything else I'm seeing complies with what their goals were for the most part. So that's where I stand.
Okay, Mike, as far as your opinion?
I think it addresses what we were concerned about way back when the overlay was taken into consideration, that it would be hard to imagine letting that property develop out as commercial right up to the residential where we knew that road would have to go through. And to me, that would be tragic to have trucks, deliveries, semis possibly going and finding their way through the neighborhood to get in there. I thought that this plan eliminated that nightmare of because that road was always shown to go through, and if we left it all commercial clear back there to the back. I've been a neighbor of commercial office before. That's not bad if you're across the street from it, and it's not sending the trucks through your neighborhood to go in and drop off supplies. And, you know, I think this is a good plan.
And Rob?
Well, you know, I really see the need, we need to develop these deep lots that were commercial to the 500-foot level years and years ago. And I think these kind of developments make sense. I know there's a lot of people that move into the community with the half-acre lot in mind, and they, that's what a lot of people like here about Lindon. But I think this works, and I think Amy's done a good job trying to change it to meet the needs of the city and the community and everything. You may remember I was a nay vote on the last one because of the street 570, and I still have heartburn with that. I think that we need to develop these deep lots, but I don't think we need to impact the neighborhoods. I'm trying to remember the name of the office complex right over here on Main Street.
Was that the Lindon's Edge that we
Lindon's
approved?
Edge. You remember those neighbors over there, how adamant they were that don't you dare let this go through to our neighborhood? Well, that would have a lot less traffic than this will have. And so I still have a heartburn with have 570 connected to this project. We have two entrances, one on State Street and one on 5th North that would go to State Street. And so I really like the project, but I still have a heartburn with the 570. And I know Amy's doing it because she was directed to do it. That's my attitude.
Okay. And the decision on 570, that decision holds from when that was changed before. So as far as us having any impact on that tonight, we can't. So, because that was decided by the city council, that final vote. As far as I'm concerned, I like this so much better than where we started from. I appreciate the reduction in the density. I'm not as concerned about the 33-foot road in the commercial area because I do like the additional green space. I appreciate a lot more of the single-family homes going into here. You know, I feel like that's really taken into account the impact of the neighborhood. I think with all the not just restrictions, but all of the things we put into place in this ordinance, I think the housing will be a really high quality and really nice housing. So with all the changes that have been made, I would be in favor of forwarding it to the council with our recommendation.
One question, do you see a need for, Amy, for RV parking at all in this project?
No, I know our first very beginning planning commission meetings, we had talked about that as an amenity. And we still fit it with our density, but we felt like the open space was a higher account, and so no, we're not providing there. We figured there's a lot of storage facilities available around Lindon that are available, so you know, RV parking.
Yeah.
There's access to those.
Okay.
Close proximity access.
Jared's online.
Yeah, Jared, we'd like your thoughts on this. Are you there, Jared?
He's in an airport, so I'm not
Oh,
sure.
is he? Okay, may not have
There he is.
reception.
There he is.
Jared, are there any thoughts or opinions you'd like to express on this item?
He's on mute.
Oh.
And there he goes.
We can't.
He's talking.
He's talking, but I can't hear him.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, Jared, we can't hear you.
Okay, yeah,
If you want to type your comments in the chat too, we could.
okay. Okay, should we just go ahead then?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a quorum, so,
He says, looks great. She has done what we have asked.
okay. Okay, are we ready for a motion? Okay, Rob, would you like to go ahead with that?
Well, I probably shouldn't, because I'm going to vote no.
Okay, okay, Scott?
Okay, yes, I will. I move to recommend approval of an ordinance, this is for the zone map amendment, correct? Yes, I move to recommend approval of ordinance 20-21-17-0 to amend the Lindon City zoning map to planned residential development overlay as identified on Exhibit 6 for the properties located at approximately 550 North State Street and 310 West 500 North with the following conditions. To the extent allowed by law, Elwood Holdings LLC will include terms within the conditions, covenants, and restrictions for the development which will limit the number of residential units that can be rented out and be occupied by non-owner residents. The applicant and the city shall work together in good faith during subdivision and site plan approval to come to an agreement as to what rental restrictions shall be the most appropriate for the anticipated development and all other items listed in the staff report.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Just know, Mike, that we got a thumbs up on,
With Jared.
And,
for Jared.
and if I may
Okay.
say, I'm not against the project. I'm just against the 570 connection. I think it's setting a precedence for these types of developments to be connected to the residential areas in the city. And I think I'm hoping a message is to the city council and other developers is that we don't want them connected to the residential areas.
And I guess my no vote would be kind of along the same lines. If 570 is connected, I would think density needs to come down just a little bit more. The project on a whole, I think they've done a great job as far as trying to address those concerns, but that would be this should be residential. It needs to be residential. And now it's in the city council's hands.
Okay, so we have a 4-2 vote on that? 4 in favor and 2 opposed?
Yes.
Okay. Then it passes
Yep.
then.
Yeah, we can
Right.
go on to the next item.
And we're on to the next item on the agenda. So thank you so much for all of you that have been here, and thank you, Amy, for being here again. Okay, the next item on our agenda is also a public hearing because it is a major subdivision. And so we do need a motion to open the public hearing.
I so move.
Okay,
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, and I'm just trying to... Okay, this is actually items 5, 6, and 7 on the agenda. This this is for the Lindon Self-Storage Site Plan, Minor and Major Subdivision, 860 West, 200 South. Our applicant is Lindon Self-Storage. The presenting staff is Mike Florence. And
Okay.
this is the item we've heard before, and Mike will explain that.
Yeah, so let me talk about the first one with the minor subdivision first. That's consolidating all of the existing parcels into 2 lots. There's, this lot 1 is an existing single-family home. The rest will be, the lot 2 will be for the storage units. If you remember last time with lot 1, there was a concern because the single-family home owner was no longer in favor of signing the subdivision plat. So that's kind of why this has been delayed coming back to you. At this point, the property owners have signed an agreement that that owner is now willing to sign the subdivision plat. So you should be able to go ahead with this minor 2-lot subdivision that legally subdivides lot 1 and then consolidates all the existing parcels into lot 2. So that's the minor subdivision item. The second item is sorry, I switched that. The first one should be site plan, second is minor subdivision. But so if we got minor subdivision taken care of, site plan approval. There's one change to this plan that we found that this lot right here, can you see that green arrow there?
Yes.
So it's zoned single family except for this little leg right there. And so what the zoning ordinance says is that this is the majority of the property zoned residential, so all of this is considered residential. So originally there was 3 more storage units right in this area. So those were removed because they were within 40 feet of the residential property. So the owner has added 9 additional visitor parking stalls within the storage area yard. So there's 4 of them out here now. There's 9 additional ones within here. So that 40-foot setback is now being met with the site plan approval. And then the major subdivision approval, that's condominiumizing the 72 units into individual condominiums, and we've been through that discussion quite a bit. They've updated their CCNRs to remove business uses. We went through those in quite a bit of detail last time. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions. These will be 3 different separate items, so you'll need to open and close them and make your 3 separate motions if you decide to approve this evening. And just as a reminder that the zone change, you already recommended approval to the council. We haven't taken that forward yet because this is all, the zone change is subject to this being approved as well. And so the council will be approving the final zone change and the major subdivision approval.
But we don't need to do anything else on the zone change,
You do
we
not.
tonight?
No, you've already made your recommendation on that one.
Okay. Well, to me, it seems like the last time we heard this, it was to the point with, some changes that the developer had made, that our biggest question was just the legal problems with the other property owner, and those have been resolved. Do we have any other questions on this? My biggest one is just managing, the units and, the city being brought in to have to try to control what goes on there. That's my biggest concern. But with all of the CCNRs and all those things then that have been put into place, that should be taken care of. But does anyone on the commission have additional questions? And then this is a public hearing, so we will let the public also ask questions.
It looks like there was 131.97 feet of masonry wall extended on the Bradford property, that leg you were talking about that is residential in that it's tied to a large residential lot, right there, yeah?
Yeah,
So the masonry wall goes to your pointer.
it'll go to right
Yeah,
there.
that makes
Yep.
sense.
My question is, I know we talked about it. What, did the agreement get put in place for the maintenance on the right-of-way? Did that get resolved? I can't, there was an issue about road maintenance or access maintenance on that.
Well, both parties are here,
Was
Mr.
that-
Olson, and, are you guys all in accordance with each other on how that right-of-way is gonna be maintained?
Yeah, I mean, it's spelled, it's pretty vague, but it's spelled out in the CCNRs that they'll maintain it. They'll do what they have to maintain it, so.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that, because that needed to be reviewed, was one of the stipulations.
Okay. Any other questions before we turn it to the public? Okay. Is there anyone here with comments from the public? And we'd be happy to hear those. Okay.
My name is Diane Campbell, and I can't see where my property is.
You're more north. You're outside it. You don't back to this property. You're to the north of
Right,
it.
right here, I
there.
can see it.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So my property is to the north, and my concern is that with a certain percentage of the owners, and there'll be a lot of them, they can do away with the CCNRs. So they can spend, months putting together rules that can be discarded.
Is that accurate?
I'm sorry, I was responding to a text. I didn't.
Okay.
Say it again, Sister Campbell.
Okay, so the people are going to divide this property into tiny little pieces and sell them to individuals. And each individual they can vote to do away with the rules and regulations that they come up with.
CCNRs, I mean, so we're condominiumizing this, right? Okay, so there's a whole statute that deals with those CCNRs and regulates how they're modified, and so this is not like an HOA. This is different than that. Now, I've not gone into that specific, it's been a while since I've looked at those questions, but I think it's a very difficult process to undo a condominialization. I love that, but it's a very difficult process. So I don't see that as a high risk in this circumstance. I think it's a very, very low, because it's such a hurdle to overcome that. You would have to have, frankly, I apologize, I'm just going off the top of my head, but I'm thinking you gotta have like everybody.
Yeah, it's 100% after it's recorded, I
Right,
think. Yeah.
I really don't know that you can, because there's
Right.
so many shared common things that they have to.
Exactly. It is really a mountain to climb that I really don't think it's a high risk.
Like with single families, it's easier because everybody's in charge of their own lawn, everybody's in charge
Right.
of.
HOAs, they do dissolve sometimes, but it's not, we're apples and oranges there, so.
If those CCNRs if that was proposed to dissolve those, would that have to come back before the city?
I don't know that, I would have to go through and look. I don't know that it does, but there are just huge hurdles to dissolve.
I don't think it would actually come back to us, but I've recorded a lot of CCNRs in my lifetime, and I've been told by my council,
Yeah.
make sure they're what you want, because they ain't gonna change.
Yeah.
So,
It is really,
yeah.
that was my recollection. It's
Yeah.
just almost impossible.
So if we had a storage unit that was owned by one person instead
Okay.
of hundreds, then I would be fine with that. But where they're selling them so that I have a lot of neighbors, that's my biggest concern. And then the other concern was that they might decide that they don't want to have rules. They don't, they want to do whatever they want to do with their property. They want to come and go at any time of the night and have lights shining all over the place and dogs barking, and there's just a lot of owners, a lot of new neighbors that we would have to deal with.
Well, those are real concerns from what we're being told. Those, as far as the CCNR is being dissolved, that is very difficult to do. And I mean, from what I understand, there is a management group that will be taking care of this, and they will be making sure those regulations are abided by. And if they're not, I guess that can be brought to the city's attention. Is that accurate?
We certainly do have nuisance ordinances, we have noise and
Right.
dust regulations. We do have things, and we get a lot of complaints all throughout the city that we respond to in those circumstances. So there is an avenue.
Okay, what we're hoping though is that and like I expressed before, is that the city won't have to take that role, that it is going to be taken care of by the management of the condominiums, the storage unit condominiums.
So the management will be paid for by their homeowners association or their ownership. I mean, if it's not a homeowners association, then what is it?
Well, it acts like a HOA in that it's collecting dues from everybody that's gonna be paying to maintain. So while it's not really a homeowners association, I guess you could call it a owners association. Just take the home off of it, because they're not able to live there.
And those I'm just going to ask, the developers if they could address again, and I know we've heard that before, how that will be managed. And I know we've gone through that before, but if you would address that.
So what we will do is we will have, and I'm not the owner, but we are the developer. I work for him. So as far as we understand is that they will have an organization taking care of, a specific person that is hired to take care of our association. And they will enforce the rules. And inside the CCNRs, there are fines if somebody does something like you're talking about. So they will be fined if they do something wrong. So they will be enforced by the manager of our organization, who will be over this owners association. So it's not like they're just willy-nilly and they say, okay, these are the CCNRs and you have to live by these. There is a specific manager of this organization that if they don't do it, again, inside those CCNRs are the fines and the things that would be assessed to the people if they do not follow through.
But each unit is going to have heat, water?
No.
I don't think they're having water.
They're going to have heat and electricity.
They're gonna have options.
But they're not going to have water. Water is outside of it, They're not going to have bathrooms. They will not have a restroom.
So it won't be.
And if anybody tries to live in one of these units, the city will not allow that. There have been other times in other storage units where we've had officers go down and evict people because it is not a dwelling unit, it's not designed to be lived in. And so if you're concerned about somebody maybe trying to live in one of these, if you see that happening, that's definitely something the city can address. Definitely.
specifically
definitely
spells
is a
out.
concern.
Yeah, it specifically spells out in the CCNRs that these are not, people cannot occupy these units. They cannot live in it. So that, again, is specifically addressed in the CCNRs also. So again, that's another thing, our manager, someone goes and moves in, not only the city, but our association would go and say, this is not appropriate, and so they will be gone.
And it's easy to say from the city standpoint in that without water and sewer, it's not occupiable by people. So, you know, where there is no sewer, no water, they'd be illegally occupying the premises without a condition of occupancy.
And they can't raise dogs and. No animals. Will there, is there times of day that they can enter, or will the gate be open all the time?
It's all spelled out.
It's spelled out.
That's spelled out in the CNRs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just found out about the meeting today, so I haven't read them, but what are the times?
Give me 1 second.
You would probably be willing to, if she's really concerned as a resident. It's going to be a recorded document. A recorded document is a public document. That's what I'm saying. You would probably be willing to share those with her. As we record?
So technically, because they are owned, they can access them 24/7. But if they're gonna be doing anything that's going to cause a nuisance, it's between the hours of 7 and 10. So like if they just wanna go in, get something out of it quick, they can do that. But if they need to have somebody come and service the RV, the boat, whatever they have there, they're gonna be running machinery, it's only between the hours of 7 and 10.
Why would they be running machinery, dude?
Somebody's there pumping, winterizing a boat, they may have a compressor going or whatever.
Machinery wouldn't be in their unit. It would
Okay,
be
sir, if,
outside of the unit.
we'd be happy to have your comment, but if you just give your name and we'd
I've
be
been
happy.
here before. My name is Brandon Hill, and I just live right next to it.
Right, and we appreciate you being here. We just need your name for the records, and then if there are comments you'd like to make, we're happy to hear those.
The only question I had was, I was under the impression from last time that I was able to come, was that they would not be able to be allowed to run a business in any shape or form from these units.
Well, that's what I understand. That's accurate.
That's correct.
When you said machinery, I was
No,
very
that's-
concerned, but I understand what you're saying now.
But
Okay.
you might have somebody that wants to, you know, they may do something in there that they may have some machinery or something. Maybe they have a lathe, or maybe they've got.
They're doing work on their own car or boat.
Inside.
Yeah, inside the unit, yeah. But
They're
again,
not running a business. It's not like
yeah,
they have a business license and they run a business.
there'll be no business license issued for
Okay.
people operating as businesses down there.
Do you have additional questions, or?
Thank you.
And I do think if you visited with them, they would be willing to provide you a copy.
I'd very much like a copy. Let me know how I can get a copy of that and read them. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any other public input? Okay, are we ready to close the public hearing then? Let's go ahead.
motion to close the public hearing.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. So is there any additional discussion among the commissioners? Like I said before, we were at the point of being ready to go ahead and approve these, it seemed like before, except for the legal issues, and those have been resolved. So We have three different motions. We have the minor subdivision, we have the site plan motion, and we have the major subdivision, and each one of those has conditions. So
I'll
we
make a
need to make
motion.
each motion individually.
I'll make a motion.
Well, real
for-
quick, and I would, so because there are different items on the agenda, so I would,
Okay, that's right.
I would do
Okay.
these as each item. So I'd open it up for the is it the minor subdivision first? I don't have the agenda in front of me.
Okay.
The agenda says site
Yeah,
plan
on the
first.
agenda it says site
Okay.
plan, minor or major, so do you want site plan first or
No, it's fine in that order.
minor and then site plan and then major?
Yeah,
That's how they're listed.
okay,
Okay,
And that's appropriate.
yeah.
yeah, okay. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah,
with
I'll
that?
make a motion on the minor subdivision motion. I move to approve of the applicant's request for preliminary minor subdivision approval of the Lindon Self-Storage Subdivision. Plat A with the following conditions. The applicant will continue to work with the city staff to make the final corrections to the plat prior to recording. Prior to plat recording, the applicant will provide staff with a final plat Mylar to include notarized signatures of owner's consent to dedication as identified on the attached subdivision plat. No parking signs be installed on the emergency access easement. The plat will meet the applicant requirements as found in Lindon City Development Manual and all items of the staff report.
I second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, and then on the site plan motion, this would be, item number 6 on the agenda.
Now, do we have to open a public hearing?
So do we have to,
We don't need
So
public
this
hearing
isn't a
for site
public
plan.
hearing. Yeah, yeah,
we
we're not
have-
doing any zone
We closed
change.
the public hearing.
These
so-
three are just public meeting items, and so,
Okay.
yeah, there's no public hearing.
Okay. So this would be for item number 6, the site plan?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I move to approve the applicant's request for site plan approval of 72 storage units with the following condition. Mike, is that number correct with the correction?
That is, it was 75.
Thank you. Site plan approval of the Lindon Storage Unit development is conditioned upon the city council granting an amendment to the Lindon City zoning map. The conditions of the Lindon Self-Storage Plat A minor subdivision and Lindon Self-Storage Plats B and C be met prior to final site plan approval. The emergency access easement will be surfaced with an asphalt, concrete, or other approved driving surface capable of supporting the imposed load of a fire apparatus weighing up to 75,000 pounds. The applicant will continue to work with the city engineer to make all final corrections to the engineering documents. The plans will meet development specifications as found in the Lindon City Development Manual. Due to changes in topography of the site, the measurement of the 7-foot masonry fence abutting residential properties be measured from the residential side of the fence. 7, access from 200 South will be a paved hard surface and any damages in the access area repaired. 8, final design will meet the Title 17 standards for industrial buildings. And item 9, all other items of the staff report.
Okay,
Second that motion.
okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. And then this would be a motion for item number 7 on the agenda, the major subdivision motion. I have someone willing to make that motion.
I will. I move to recommend approval of the applicant's request for preliminary approval of Lindon Self-Storage Condominium Division Plats B and C with the following conditions 1 through 7. 1, preliminary approval of the Lindon self-storage plats B and C are conditioned upon the city council granting an amendment to the Lindon city zoning map. Number 2, the applicant will continue to work with city staff to make all final corrections to the plat prior to its recording. Number 3, the secondary access easement will be recorded prior to the recording of the plat or included on the plat with the signature of the owner's consent. Prior to plat recording, the applicant will provide staff with final plat Mylar to include notarized signatures of owner's consent to dedication as identified in the attached subdivision plat. And the plat will meet the applicable requirements as found in the Lindon City Development Manual and Utah Code Title 57, Chapter 8 for condominiums. Number 6, the final covenants, conditions, and restrictions will be recorded with the subdivision plats. And number 7, all items of the staff report.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a question.
Okay.
Have you seen the preliminary plat at all on it?
Yes.
Does it have Mr. Olson as a signator as an owner on the plat? Because where that's going across his property, I would almost think that he'd need to sign the plat. Am I wrong,
We'll have to,
Brian?
There's an agreement. There, he gave us an easement agreement.
Okay.
So it's just an easement.
So if there's gonna be a recorded easement, he wouldn't need to sign?
That's my.
Okay. Okay.
I'll check with the county,
Okay.
our mapper for our area.
Yeah. That's the only question I had.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The voting is unanimous. Okay. And that concludes those items on the agenda. So, and if you have concerns, I'm sure they would be willing to visit with you. Okay. And the last two items on our agenda are just the planning commissioner reports. Thank you to all of you for being here
Thank
this
you.
evening. Appreciate it very much. Okay, does anyone have anything they'd like to bring up this evening?
A question for Michael. I noticed, I mentioned earlier, the
Thank
Lindon
you,
Edge
Brian.
development. I've noticed it's come to a screeching halt. Any idea why?
Just filed a condominium, so they just filed a condominium subdivision for that, an application. And so they're going to be coming to you soon. I think they're gonna start selling off the first two buildings.
Which one are you talking about?
The one there by the
One by Castle Park.
Castle Park.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
Steve.
It wasn't approved as a condominium,
It
was it?
wasn't, but Steve Davies just submitted an application about 2 weeks ago. I just got
Okay.
his CCNRs this week, so.
I think it was their intent, though. That's why you might have been confused like me, because I thought they had done that originally, because they talked about it, but they're doing it now.
They are.
Yeah.
Then my only other comment is, have you guys noticed the color of the roof on Holiday Oil?
It's not bright red, is it?
It's not even the red we secondarily approved.
Is it red?
Well, I noticed
It
it.
looks rust color.
Yeah, it's not, I noticed it. Yeah.
It's interesting.
You know what's interesting, though? I was driving on the free, there was a Holiday Oil with a blue roof I saw the other day, and so all this idea that it is their trademark, I'm like, well,
Yeah.
somebody got them to put a blue roof on a building,
I
so.
just happened
Well,
to notice
and Phil pointed out to me that the canopy's the bright red.
it. Yeah,
And the roof's the rust,
exactly.
more rust color, so we
I
didn't,
haven't paid attention.
we didn't quite catch the canopy on that, but,
Anyway, just a comment.
Maybe we should tell them they have to match.
yeah. Might be a little late.
I did this week have an opportunity to talk with a realtor from Ivory Homes, and he told me that per their company policy, they have stopped asking the homeowners to sign the agreement that they will not have an ADU in the property out here. They've just said, we're gonna stay out of it. Now, it's interesting that they're finding that they're coming to the council, but they are already selling homes that they are not making them sign the understanding agreement that there will not be an ADU out there. They seem to think that, from what I heard, they're just gonna stay out of it and let.
Because of the,
So Ivory's aware now about that. I talked to one of their real estate agents a while back. We talked to Chris Camvroulis about that. That's why they're gonna come to the council on the 20th. They had forgotten, I think, about that the
The
zoning
development
ordinance for that
agreement.
area down there doesn't allow ADUs, and so they've said they've got some models that they wanna come present to the council.
Okay, yeah, so I mean, when I heard that, I was sort of surprised, because I knew, and at that time, I explained to this salesman that was part of the 25% that the city could say, 25% of the community cannot have it. But it is gonna cause problems if they sold too many of them, had some people sign it and some people didn't.
well, is that
That could cause a
changed
problem
by,
down the road.
yeah, what the legislature did?
No,
No.
we can limit 25,
1,000,
yeah.
then that's part of our
And that
development
25%
agreement.
is limit, that there's not more than 25% of our residents
Of our-
living in ADUs, is that?
No, it's, you take your residential zones and you can limit 25% of that. College towns like Orem, Provo, Salt Lake, they can limit 67%.
So yeah, that's the only thing along that I would, you will see what the city council says, but my guess is we might want to include that overlay in that zone, add that zone to that
Well, it's a
exclusion.
legitimate concern if they can't provide, well, if they can't provide at least one, because we can still make them put one off-street parking space in. There's places down there, there's no way they could say that's an off-street.
small.
Yeah, you know, they can provide an off-street.
So what, by definition, what is that? Does it have to be behind the house, or can it just be in the driveway?
Technically, I think it could just be in the driveway.
So that's the problem.
But-
If they have a driveway, then,
But that's a little,
No.
that's a little vague, so we described that as a land use regulation in ours, saying that it had to be behind the front setback.
oh, so in our ordinance, it has to be behind the front setback of the house, it has to be separate.
Yes.
So, and that might eliminate some of these anyway,
Yeah.
but I,
Because parking's could become a real issue if they're already seeing some
Yeah.
ADU
It's-
problems with people that don't provide parking, then.
I think that's one of the problems. I mean, our street is, yeah, I mean, I think, just the nature of the size of the families now, right? You got families with 3 teenagers and an accessory apartment. Tell me where those cars go, right?
I
mean,
got a family couple that just moved out of my downstairs apartment, newly married, and I was just helping them out.
Uh-huh,
Had 3 cars.
yeah.
I mean, fortunately, I got plenty of off-street parking area down in the back, but it was kind of aggravating to me, even to have 3 cars there.
One of my neighbors did it, one was a Sprinter van,
Oh, is that right?
big, long thing.
Yeah.
That's an easy change to make. I suggest we just get through the September 20th presentation with the council, and then, I mean, like I told the council last night, I've been here almost 3 years, and we've amended the accessory apartment ordinance 3 times, so it's,
Thanks
We're
to
on
the
track.
state.
we're on track,
Yeah.
so.
No, it's,
Could I ask another question, Sharon? I noticed a couple of the public here asking, why is this being considered again?
Mhm.
So there was some concern on their part. I think they felt like it was dead.
For 6 months.
Yeah.
Well, they probably stated that at city council, did they?
well, and I think the one thing that I was confused, when we first read it, in the city council meeting, when it was first read, or I asked about it, there was an and, at least I thought there was an and. It was 6 months and a substantial change. When you read the code this time, it wasn't. There wasn't that and in there. And so I think if someone heard the same thing I heard, that would be confusing to them. And so, I'm assuming you just read the correct code tonight, but I think that if there was an and in there, a lot of them thought it had to be 6 months and a substantial change.
Yeah. We can
Would
look,
that be,
What's the order?
I'm not,
You're not gonna-
there are some,
Motivation.
yeah, some
There was some financial
talks
motivation
between
for the city to.
attorneys. Okay, I don't, anyone have anything else? I don't this evening. Mike, do you have anything to bring to us?
Nope.
Okay.
Well, just to follow up, what I was gonna say on several people asking that, the city's on good grounds, aren't they?
As far as, like,
Considering that.
yeah,
Is that why?
We
But
are.
I don't think they need to know the detail that there was threatened litigation. And so we looked at it real hard, but I think it looks substantially changed to me.
Especially the way he argued from the first, what was
Yeah.
first presented to what it's presented to now.
Yeah.
They are substantially different.
And I think for the better,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, absolutely, it's a lot better.
so.
And I appreciated
and I-
Amy Albert, is that her name? You know, and she's one of the closest neighbors, and she's just saying, we feel like there's been a
Well,
lot of
yeah.
adjustments made, and
And maybe just a little bit of training here. So one of the items from the lawsuit that they were claiming was this zoning estoppel. That basically the city kind of led them on, you know, we had 3 or 4 planning commission meetings, we had 3 or 4 city council meetings, and it was kind of like, well, if it, you know, try again and come back, you know? And I think looking at the future, when we're dealing with zone changes, we just need to be direct and, nope, this doesn't follow what we want, you know, we recommend denial. You know, and then the council, you know, they just deny it as, you know, they have to make, you know, just be concise and direct, and if they feel like approving it or deny it, but they, you know, we don't take it out, you know, 7, 8 meetings between the planning commission and
The funny
council.
thing is, they met the code, and the council still turned it down.
Yeah,
but they don't have to allow 10 units per acre.
Right,
It's up to that.
right, because it's a zone change. But I think what's interesting, I mean, back to that point,
They don't-
and maybe
they
just
can
clarifying on the code.
Determine what they want to do.
I remember that first meeting with the city council, they were just gonna deny it.
I can see your point
But
on
the
that.
6-month issue is the reason they reeled back. And so if it,
Yeah,
I think if they would have understood, hey, they could bring it back with a substantial change without the 6 months, they probably would have just denied it that first time anyway.
yeah.
So it's us understanding the code maybe a little bit better so that I mean,
Well,
that was a situation where I think we were all taken off guard that they were going down
We're
that
not
route.
put in that situation very often, and so.
Right.
But I think we almost need to go back a step even before, and that's when we participated in crafting the ordinance in the beginning. You know,
Yes.
and I'm, you know, I'm not trying to say that we did anything wrong or anything, but when we craft something that can go on multiple different parcels, I mean, I had no qualms about the plat thing, but I was very concerned because of the traffic issue of running things through the residential neighborhood, that could pose a problem, which was the major point, you know, but it was obvious there weren't gonna be anything but access to State Street on the west side of the road, which is a far easier sell to the community than, you know, we need to maybe look at things a little, or think of some hypotheticals and, you know.
And I think Brian and I are gonna look at this ordinance and
That's
probably
that
just-
was my question. I
probably just
understand
tie
that.
it to these 2 properties anyways, so.
So we wouldn't have to worry about modifying it or anything.
It happening again, yeah. Yeah. That's what I understood too. Well, if there's nothing
Because
else,
actually
let's have a motion to adjourn.
Have you got an
and-
assistant yet?
No. He's wishing.
I interviewed 2 individuals. One of them was extremely qualified, but he's missing, but I need someone to help me with some GIS and mapping and stuff. And so we posted it again yesterday, and well, on the website we got it. I got it out to the APA group on Monday morning, so, and so we increased the pay slightly and trying to find somebody, but I'm not getting any luck so far.
They've been looking for a building inspector forever too, and everybody's, all the cities are looking.
Yeah, I mean, I typically will get 20 to 24 applications for a job, and
Now you're not.
I got 2.
Why do you think that is?
I have no idea. I went to lunch with the new professor over the planning program at BYU last week, and he didn't know either. He's like, us in the U, we're pushing out lots of new planners, and I'm not sure why they're not applying, unless the private sector's taking them or what, but I don't know.
I need to be excused if that's okay. I've got family.
Well, I motion that we close.
Okay.
I second.
Yep.
Okay,
All in
motion
favor?
and a second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't want to
Some
cut this
official
discussion
motion there?
short,
What?
but
If she would have left, I would
My
have not acted
husband's
to a motion and say,
entertaining.
oh, should have been a vice chair for
Company.
something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm just joshing.